explore the world without having to leave your kitchen. Join me as I take some of the most popular dishes from around the globe and give them a healthy twist. Welcome to another episode of Healthy Around the World, where we visit countries all by our taste buds without having to leave our kitchen. And today we are traveling to one of my most favorite food countries, and that is Spain. And we are going to be creating a dessert that has become so incredibly popular. All you need to do is do a quick Google search and you will see burnt Basque cheesecake everywhere. Now, yes, we are creating a cheesecake, but of course we are not putting in any gluten. There is no sugar in this cheesecake. There is no grain. I'm also creating for you guys a lactose-free version. So there is dairy, but it is lactose-free. And we're doing all of that. And by the way, can I just tell you guys that this cheesecake is so incredible. It is so amazing. Potentially, I think it's one of the best cheesecakes that I have ever created. So the recipe itself is really simple, which is so good to know that you could literally fall over it and still create this amazing, amazing dessert. And it doesn't require too many ingredients. So let's get into the recipe. We're going to start with talking about the tin. Now, this tin that I'm using is known as a spring-form tin, which basically means that that's the springing action there and the base falls out. So it's a lot easier to remove our cheesecake once it's cooked, once it's ready. So we will be using that, and the size that I'm using is about 9 centimeters here. So 9 centimeters? No, 9 inches. 9 inches here. I'll give you that breakdown of what that centimeter is. I can't quite recall. I think it's about 18 to 20 centimeters. So it's not a large tin, and we're making enough cheesecake. It's going to serve around about 8 to 10 people, depending obviously on how big you slice it, but it is quite rich. So a little does go a long way, which is good to know. So once you've got your spring-form tin, we're going to be lining it with baking paper. Now, this process is really, really important because in lining it with baking paper, we are making sure that obviously our cheesecake doesn't stick to the tin, and our cheesecake also does not stick to the baking paper. So it has to be non-stick baking paper. But I am, just to help with the lining process, I'm just going to spray the base of my tin here, just with a little bit of cooking oil. And that's just going to help that initial layer of paper to sit down nicely on our tin, which is of course very important. So you want to take up a generous amount of paper, more than you probably think you need. And the reason for that is when we put this paper in here, and you want to be as kind of rough as possible, because one of the beauties of this cheesecake is that it is very, very rustic. So as I was saying, you could fall over it and you'd still get it right. So you don't have to be all pretty and careful about how you line this tin. In fact, this is the rusticness of this dish. It was created in a little restaurant in San Sebastian, which is in the northern part of Spain. And that particular region, which is the Basque region, is very well known for its dairy production, produces high quality dairy. So it seems only fitting that a cheesecake would come from San Sebastian. And it is a small little restaurant, owner operated. It was the chef who invented this recipe. I'm doing it again, another piece of paper. The chef actually invented this recipe in the 1990s. So it's not an old cheesecake, but it has been named as one of the best cheesecakes in the world. So I'm excited that I get to teach you guys how to make this cheesecake, but a really healthy version. So the second piece of paper that I'm putting in here, you kind of, if you kind of look at that, you'll notice that this side here is high, this side here is quite low. I want to make sure all the sides are quite high. So I'm putting this paper in almost perpendicular to the other bits of paper to ensure that we've got all these wonderful peaks here, which is going to help our cheesecake not to overflow, but it's also going to help with the burning process, the cooking process. And yes, remember, this is a burnt Basque cheesecake. I'll talk about more of that soon. So that is lined, that is ready. You can see, like I said, it's rough. This is what you want. It is rough. And in fact, in La Vina, which is a restaurant where this dish was lovingly created, it is actually served. They walk around the restaurant like this, and it is served straight from the tin and the paper. That's how rustic it is. So this is perfect. So I'm going to pop that off to the side. But what I am going to do, and this is kind of like your insurance policy when this cheesecake goes into the oven, is just pop your tin onto a little tray that's going to go in the oven, just in case, you know, you might get some drips out through the bottom, depending on, you know, how good your spring form tin is. So that is literally insurance policy done. So let's set that aside. All right, now we are going to talk about the mixture. And I am going to be doing the mixture straight into my bowl and then popping it onto my little cake mixer here. So ideally you do it in a cake mixer, or, you know, and I'm actually going to put a flat paddle on this, but alternatively you can also do this in the food processor as well. And yes, you can do it by hand, but it is going to require a very stiff, quite a large wooden spoon, or a very, very stiff whisk as well, because you want to get this as smooth as possible. So into my bowl here, I'm going to be putting first the cream cheese. Now I have secured myself a lactose-free cream cheese from the supermarket. I'm going to show you guys that one. So it's a brand is Lidl's. I know that Philadelphia also do a lactose-free cream cheese, and you know that taking up the lactose means you don't have what is potentially a allergen for some people. They have the inability to digest lactase, which is the protein found in milk. So if you are a person who needs to have lactose-free, hallelujah, right? But also just remember that even though this is lactose free, it is still a high fat dairy, so this is a treat food. I want to put that out there. This is a treat food. I'm not giving you free range to eat the whole cheesecake, even though you might be tempted to. So just remember that. So into our bowl here, we're going to place our cream cheese, and it's really, really, really important. I'm going to emphasize this as key to the success of this cheesecake, is that this needs to be at room temperature. So really, really, really soft. So don't have it in the fridge for maybe 4 to 5 hours before you intend to bake this cheesecake. That is really important. So into our bowl, we're going to plonk in our cream cheese. We're after 720 grams in total, and that is about 1.5 pounds of cream cheese. And remember, this serves about 8 to 10 people. So I need a little bit more. Popping this in. See how soft that is? Can you just tell that that is like perfectly soft? So you might have to, if you're using like a block of cream cheese, you may have to cut it into dice it up, cut it into dice. But my one's quite soft, which is really good. So 720 grams is the first thing, which is 1.5 pounds. And also to this, we're also going to add in some eggs, and the eggs that I'm using are actually egg yolks only. So we want in total, they can just go straight in there as well, we want in total, that was 4, 6, I need 2 more. I'm just going to break these. This is what this is my little jar that I use to keep my egg whites in, because this is gold as well, right? You don't want to throw away your egg whites. I mean, I'm talking pavlova, I'm talking meringue, but I'm just talking, you know, just when you want to add a bit of extra egg white into anything. Like I sometimes will add, if I'm making an omelette and I've got extra egg whites, I will actually add some extra egg whites in there because it's good protein. So just very carefully, and you notice that I'm doing this not above the actual bowl. I'm doing it over here because I don't want to get too much white by accident into the mix. So 6 large, and once again, room temperature eggs. We're going to be adding in now. Fantastic. And of course, my egg whites, put the lid on, back in the fridge, and you've got your egg whites sitting there just in case you want to make something special with your egg whites. So that goes in there. As well as that, we need to consider, of course, that we need a bit of sweetness here. So the sweetness that I'm using today, I'm actually using our zero as sugar, our pure erythritol, because of course that is 0 calories, that is 0 laxative effect, and that is 0 response to your blood glucose or your insulin levels. So fantastic product. Of course you can get that from our store, bridgets.shop. We're going to be adding that because it's 0 of stuff. So we're still going to have this wonderful sweet cheesecake, not too sweet, I like a little bit mild, but we're able to do that by adding our 0. So what I've done actually here is I have taken the zero and I've created a powder from it, just so it can mix through the cream cheese better. And the way that I do that, really easy, is I take up my spice grinder or my coffee grinder, and I need 200 grams of zero in total. I think I've got 100 grams in there. So I'm just going to put 100 grams straight into my little machine. I love this machine, like you have no idea how much I adore this machine. You know, I do spices in it, I make ground wakame in it, and then I do this. I can make powdered sugar or icing sugar so easily and so incredibly quickly. So 200 grams, which is 7 ounces in total, we want of our zero. Lid goes on, and then we just maybe another couple of seconds. It's so quick. It's crazy. Yeah, fantastic. Isn't that amazing? So 200 grams of our zero goes straight into our bowl. We need some plug here, so I've got more room. Straight into our bowl. Give it a bit of a tap. Make sure you get it all out. And there's the other 100 grams that we're going to pop in there, all done, of course, powdered, as I was saying, just to help that dissolve through the cream cheese, which is very, very cool. We are also going to add in some inulin powder. Inulin powder is going in there for a couple of reasons. The main reasons is I want to add some prebiotic quality to it. So now we have created a prebiotic cheesecake. So you want 45 grams, which is 1.5 ounces of our inulin powder goes in here. It's going to add that little bit of candy floss sweetness, but of course, as I was saying, dietary fiber, prebiotic, done. Wonderful. All right, so those are kind of it, apart from just, you know, a little bit of salt, a little bit of mineral salt, just a pinch of salt goes in there. And we're just going to pop this straight onto our mixer, and we're going to mix it basically till smooth. So remember, I'm using this paddle attachment. That's not on right. I should put that on right. There we go. We're going to use this paddle attachment, flat paddle. You could use a whisk as well. I just find that this paddle works really, really well. But of course, soft cream cheese, this should not be too difficult to get through. It's not too difficult at all. Look at the colour. Oh my goodness. Those are from those amazing egg yolks. Oh, the secret to this cheesecake is absolute creaminess. It will melt in your mouth. And looking at this now, I've got a really good result because that cream cheese was lovely and soft. So I will just say it one more time. Your cream cheese must be at room temperature when you are doing this recipe. In order to get what fell into my mouth. In order to get what I have now got here, and you can see that, can't you? Look how creamy that is. So I'm just going to give it just one more little go here. Amazing. Like, this makes my heart sing. My gosh. I will never ever not be impressed by the look of that creaminess as it's happening. So that is good. I'm really happy with that. We're going to move on to the very last type of sort of dairy product that we're putting in here. Once again, it's lactose-free, and this is a lactose-free sour cream. It is fabulous. So 200 grams, which is, I think this is what that pot is. Yeah, it's 200 grams. 200 grams. Let me open up the lid, make it a little bit easier for myself. 200 grams of our lactose-free sour cream is now going in, which is 7 ounces. Once again, I just picked this up at the supermarket. I was really impressed. They've actually got quite a few different lactose-free, products on their shelves now. They realise that it's one of the allergens that is so incredibly common within people to be lactose intolerant. So that is good. Let's give it one last little mix. See how we're going. Still looking creamy and wonderful. Oh my goodness. That's pretty awesome. That's so good. Okay, last ingredient. I am putting in a little bit of xanthan gum. You could also use gur gum as well. So just 1 teaspoon. Just sprinkle that on top. That's all we need, 1 little teaspoon. 1 little more mix to go, just to move that xanthan gum through. Great. Now the xanthan gum is there just to help it to bind a little bit. Some people actually put flour or different types of flours into their mix. And I was playing around with that version. Here we go. This is what I'm after. I was playing around with xanthan gum, so much better because we don't have to have any type of flour or grain in here. Alright, so all you need to do now is just to scrape it into your set tray. Don't want to waste that. I mean, plastic spatula is everything here as well, right? I'm doing it with my left hand. Okay, that kind of worked. Yeah, plastic spatula is definitely required when it comes to this. Alright, so let's just take that cake mixture, cheesecake mixture, put it in, just being aware that you don't want to hit the sides of the paper as much as possible. You want to get it kind of in the center, and then we'll use our spatula to flatten it down once all this is done. But you can see the importance of this plastic spatula. You know, it's one of those bits of equipment that I have probably about 5 of them, because they're cheap as chips to buy, and they are so incredibly valuable. Well, they're invaluable, aren't they, in a kitchen? So give that a little bit of a mix out, squishing it down, moving it into edges. Remember, rustic, rustic, rustic. We've got a little bit more there. Ooh, it's looking good. And once we're at this point where you've taken everything you can take out of your bowl, you've used your spatula just to flatten it a little bit. I mean, it will flatten in the oven as you're cooking it. And now, yes, it's time to go off to the oven. So I have my oven set at 210 degrees, and that is on fan bake. I know that's really hot. This cheesecake doesn't take long to bake. So 210 degrees, which is 420 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to bake that for 20 minutes to begin with. And then when that 20 minutes is up, and this is very important, once the 20 minutes is up, you need to turn your oven up. Don't open the door, just turn your oven up to 230 degrees Celsius, which is 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and bake it for another 10 to 15 minutes. I'm off to the oven now. I'll show you what that all looks like. Of the oven. I had it in the oven for a total of 35 minutes. So the first 20, as you know, is on a lower temperature, 210 degrees Celsius, which is 420 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I whacked it up to 230 degrees Celsius, which is 450 degrees Fahrenheit, for a further 15 minutes. And what you can see that we have is we have a wonderful dark, almost burnt crust on top of the cheesecake. Now this color is massively important because it's actually this color that helps to give the cheesecake a caramelized flavor when you cut into it. And I also want you guys just to pay attention to this, because when you're checking to see if your cheesecake is ready, the first thing that you're looking for is this wonderful caramelized color on top, almost to the point of being burnt. That is the first thing. So you want this very dark, almost mahogany-like color on the surface of the cheesecake. The next thing that you're looking for to tell whether your cheesecake is ready is, let me give it a bit of a wiggle for you guys. And I want to give it a wiggle because I want you to see what's happening here as we have a massive jiggle going on. It's definitely a wobble, and that is what you are looking for. So what I was checking for after the 10 minute at the higher temperature is I had a bit of a feel on the outside of the cheesecake to begin with to see if it started to firm up. But I was paying special attention to the middle, because that middle bit, we still want it to jiggle and to wobble. The idea with this cheesecake, believe it or not, is you actually want to undercook it slightly, because when you cut into it, and remember, this is the recipe for one of the best cheesecakes in the world. When you cut into this cheesecake, it needs to almost ooze the creamy goodness out of it. So it is erring on the side of caution when it does come to baking, and remembering that jiggle, 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 wobble, wobble, wobble is really good. That is what you are looking for. So the next stage that you want to do once your cheesecake has that lovely jiggle on it, a little bit firm on the outside but still pretty soft in the middle, is put it onto a wire rack and just leave it there to cool. Now this is probably going to be the hardest part of the whole process for you. You need to leave it to cool for at least 3 to 4 hours before you can actually slice into it. Now there's a couple of schools of thought when it comes to how you serve this cheesecake. Some people like to serve it at room temperature, so it doesn't go anywhere near the fridge before you actually cut into it. You will be then guaranteed to get that wonderful oozing softness coming out of the cheesecake, which is literally the cornerstone of this wonderful cheesecake. Whereas other people actually like to put it into the fridge. Once they've left it to cool on the bench for about 3 to 4 hours, they then pop it into the fridge, uncovered though. You don't want to create any sweat. Pop it into the fridge uncovered and allow it to cool down completely before unmolding it. And you will get a slightly firmer cheesecake. It's definitely easier to cut, let me tell you, but you won't get quite that smooth ooziness, which is what I really, really love. So it's up to you which way you serve it, to be completely honest, but just make sure, however you decide to serve it, warm or room temperature or cold from the fridge, as you should be serving it on the paper. Now, I have to be honest and tell you that we may have taken a couple of slices out of it previously. We couldn't resist. It was literally calling my name. So I made this one yesterday and I did actually put it into the fridge. So you can see that it's firmed up really, really well. It's still lovely and soft and creamy though. So if you do decide you're going to store your cheesecake in the fridge, which you can do overnight because it will help with the keeping properties, and it will keep for a couple of days if you store it in the fridge, when you're ready to eat it, allow it to come up to room temperature. So take it out of the fridge at least a couple of hours before you're ready to serve and eat, just to make sure it's not too firm, because you need that ooziness. So I'm going to slice a piece and we're going to serve it totally traditional. This is how it's done. This is a crustless cheesecake. Remember, from that wonderful little restaurant La Vina in San Sebastian in the Basque country in northern Spain. And they do literally serve it like this, in the paper, for that beautiful comfort style cheesecake. And it kind of reminds me, it's a bit of a cross between a creme catalan, if anyone has ever been to the southern part of Spain, where they serve something similar, like a custard, a set custard, but they serve it with pastry, and it's pretty wonderful as well. So it kind of reminds me of a creme catalan. That's the first thing it reminds me of. But it's also very custard-like in its consistency, and that is definitely what you want to do. And if the middle bit breaks off and it oozes out, you know that you literally have the perfect cheesecake. So let's serve it simply as they would do in La Vina. It's just served on a plate. It's not iced, it doesn't have any fruit on it. Of course, you could do all that sort of stuff if you wanted to add a little bit of inulin sprinkle, or you wanted to add a little berry compote, or anything like that, grilled figs, some mascarpone raisin, or anything along those lines. Go for it. But as I said, we're going to be doing it the traditional style, like you would get served in La Vina, which is literally on a plate with a little cake fork. But they have one other little specialty that is served with it, and this here is phenomenal. It is a sherry from Spain. It is called Pedro Jimenez, very sweet dessert style sherry, and it goes perfectly with this wonderful burnt Basque cheesecake. So if you want to go looking for this sherry, I mean, I had no idea a sherry like this even existed. The only time I ever saw a sherry was Nana's cooking sherry. And then one of the first restaurants I ever managed, we had an amazing supplier who would give us these sherries that we would then match with all our beautiful desserts, and cheese definitely goes nicely with this particular sherry. So Pedro Jimenez, it is absolutely wonderful, and is literally, let's be honest, it is a match made in Spanish heaven. I hope you've enjoyed today's recipes, share. I guarantee you, you are not going to be disappointed when you try this cheesecake. It is, as I was saying to begin with, possibly, quite likely, one of the best cheesecakes I have ever personally cooked and tasted. So give it a go, give the recipe a go. Please, by all means, share with me your thoughts on what you think, how you think it went, whether you liked it, whether you think it could do with a few more adornments. Me personally, I think it's perfect just the way it is. So thank you so much for sharing another episode of Eating Around the World, but eating healthy versions of wonderful popular dishes from all around the world. Join me next Wednesday, same time, same place, and we will be visiting another wonderful country. Until then, everyone, take care and be well. And don't forget, if you want the full recipe, jump on over to modkai.com. I've got the full recipe up there for you guys right now. You can download it. You can print it off, and of course you can then make this wonderful cheesecake. All right, everyone, take care. Bye.